Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to the Claverings by Anthony Trollope. We have been dealing with poor Harry Clavering as he is caught in a dilemma of his own making between the two women that he has promised to marry. But that has led us to forget just briefly that we have another plotline going on. Julie Ongar has gone to the Isle of Wight with Sophie Gordeloup to get away from it all, to get away from London, to get away from the chaos being caused by Harry Clavering. And there, at the Isle of Wight, she has been accosted out in the wilderness by Count Pateroff, who she has told, through Harry, she does not want to see. He finds her anyway. He tells Harry. When Harry finally delivers that message, he says, nonsense, I'll see who I want. And sure enough, thanks to his sister, who informs him where Julie is, he goes and finds her. She adamantly resists him the whole time. She says, if you won't leave me, I'll leave you. And he doesn't. He walks along with her, talking the whole time, with her ignoring him, as she makes her way back to the inn. Furious. So it's time we got back to that storyline. We are now at chapter 29, and this is how Damon parted from Pythias. And you can look up those names. They're a part of mythology. They are meant to be close friends. Damon and Pythias were close friends. Lady Ongar, when she left Count Pateroff at the little fort on the cliff and entered by herself the gardens belonging to the hotel, had long since made up her mind that there should be at last a positive severance between herself and her devoted Sophie. She intuits immediately how Count Pateroff knew where to find her. For half an hour she had been walking in silence by the Count's side, and though, of course, she had heard all that he had spoken, she had been able in that time to consider much. It must have been through Sophie that the Count had heard of her journey to the Isle of Wight, and worse than that, Sophie must, as she thought, have instigated that pursuit. In this she wronged her poor friend. Sophie had been simply paid by her brother for giving such information as enabled him to arrange this meeting. She had not even counseled him to follow Lady Ongar, but Lady Ongar, in blind wrath, determined that Sophie should be expelled from her bosom. Lady Ongar would find this task of expulsion the less difficult, in that she had come to loathe her devoted friend, and to feel it incumbent on her to rid herself of such devotion. Now had arrived the moment in which it might be done. Now here, I don't believe Trollope's narrator. I think that Sophie told her brother everything, and told him what to do and when to do it. I don't think she just said, oh, well, that's where we're going, and left it at that. And yet, there were difficulties. Two ladies living together in an inn cannot, without much that is disagreeable, send down to the landlord saying that they want separate rooms because they've taken it into their minds to hate each other. And there would, moreover, be something awkward in saying to Sophie that though she was discarded, her bill should be paid, for this last time only. No, Lady Ongar had already perceived that that would not do. She would not quarrel with Sophie after that fashion. She would leave the Isle of Wight on the following morning early, informing Sophie why she did so, and offer money to the little Franco-Pole, presuming that it might not be agreeable to the Franco-Pole to be hurried away from her marine and rural happiness so quickly. But in doing this, she would be careful to make Sophie understand that Bolton Street was closed against her forever afterwards. With neither Count Pateroff nor his sister, she would ever again willingly place herself in contact. It was dark as she entered the house. The walk out, her delay there, and her return having together occupied her 3 hours. She had hardly felt the dusk growing on her as she progressed steadily on her way, and that odious man beside her. She had been thinking of other things, and her eyes had accustomed themselves gradually to the fading twilight. But now, when she saw the glimmer of the lamps from the inn windows, she knew that the night had come upon her, and she began to fear that she had been imprudent to allow herself out so late. Imprudent, even had she succeeded in being alone. Women just don't walk out alone at night. She went direct to her room, that, woman-like, she might consult her own face as to the effects of the insult she had received, and then, having, as it were, steadied herself, prepared herself for the scene that was to follow, she descended to the sitting-room and encountered her friend. I want to add, just parenthetically, I've known a whole lot of people in my life, including a whole lot of people as young as Julie Ongar. I've known a whole lot of young people in my life, and I'm not kidding when I say that when it comes to feeling the necessity to check your face in the mirror, 90% of those people have been men. Not woman-like, but man-like. just say it, that's all. The friend, was the first to speak, and the reader will kindly remember that the friend had ample reason for knowing what companion Lady Ongar had been likely to meet upon the downs. Well, you've just told us that we weren't likely to know that, because she didn't. She's guilty of everything. She told her brother everything to do. Julie, dear, how late you are, said Sophie, as though she were rather irritated at having been kept so long waiting for her tea. I am late, said Lady Ongar. I don't think that you are... I don't think... And don't you think you are imprudent? All alone, you know, my dear. Just a little imprudent. Very imprudent, indeed. I have been thinking of that now as I crossed the lawn and found how dark it was. I have been very imprudent, but I have escaped without much injury. Escaped? Escaped what? Have you escaped a cold or a drunken man? Both, as I think. Then she sat down, and having rung the bell, she ordered tea. There seems to be something very odd with you, said Sophie. I do not quite understand you. When did you see your brother last? Lady Ongar said. My brother? Yes, Count Pateroff. When did you see him last? Why do you want to know? Well, it does not signify, of course, as of course you will not tell me, but will you say when you will see him next? How can I tell? Will it be tonight? Julie, what do you mean? Only this, that I wish you would make him understand that if he has anything to do concerning me, he might as well do it out of hand. For the last hour... Then you have seen him? Yes. Is that not wonderful? I have seen him. And why could you not tell him yourself what you had to say? He and I do not agree about certain things, and I do not like to carry messages to him. And you have seen him here on this Sacra Sea coast? Exactly so, on this Sacra Sea coast. Is that not odd that he should have known where I was, known the very inn where we were, and known, too, whither I was going tonight? Well, he would learn that from the servants, my dear. No doubt. He has been good enough to amuse me with mysterious threats as to what he would do to punish me if I would not... Become his wife? Suggested Sophie. Exactly. It was flattering on his part. I certainly do not intend to become his wife. Ah, you like better that young Clavering who has the other sweetheart. He is younger, that is true. Upon my word, yes, I like my cousin Harry Clavering much better than I like your brother, but as I take it, that has not much to do with it. I was speaking of your brother's threats. I do not understand them, but I wish he could make them... He could be made to understand that if he has anything to do, he had better go and do it. As for marriage, I would as sooner marry the first plowboy I could find in the fields. Julie, no need to insult him. I will have no more of your Julie, and I will have no more of you. As she said this, she rose from her chair and walked about the room. You have betrayed me, and there shall be an end of it. Betrayed you? What nonsense you talk! In what way have I betrayed you? You sent him upon my track here, though you knew I desired to avoid him. And is that all? I was coming here to this detestable island, and I told my brother, that is my offense, and then you talk of betraying. Julie, you sometimes are a goose. Very often, no doubt. But, Madame Gordeloup, if you please, we will be geese apart for the future. Oh, certainly, if you wish. I do wish it. It cannot hurt me. I can choose my friends anywhere. The world is open to me to go where I please into society. I am not at a loss. All this Lady Ongar well understood, but she could bear it without injury to her temper. Such revenge as was to be expected from such a woman. I do not want you to be at a loss, she said. I only want you to understand that after what has this evening occurred between your brother and me, our acquaintance had better cease. Am I to be punished for my brother? You said just now that it would be no punishment, and I was glad to hear it. Society is, as you say, open to you, and you will lose nothing. Of course society is open to me. Have I committed myself? I am not talked about for my lovers all by the town. Why should I be at a loss? No. Who helps the town to talk about her lovers? Sophie. I shall return to London tomorrow by the earliest opportunity. I have already told them so, and have ordered a carriage to go to Yarmouth at 8. And leave me here alone? Your brother is here, Madame Gordeloup. My brother is nothing to me. You know well that. He can come and go as he please. I came here to follow you, and to be companion to you, to oblige you. And now you say you go and leave me in this detestable barrack? If I am here alone, I will be revenged. You shall go back with me if you wish it. At 8 o'clock in the morning, and see it is now 11, while you have been wandering about alone with my brother in the dark? So she can't help herself. How awful a rumor monger she is. No, I will not go so early as that. Tomorrow is Saturday. You must remain until Tuesday. You may do as you please. I shall go at 8 tomorrow. Very well. You go at 8. Very well. And who will pay for the meals that you are gone, Lady Ongar? I have already ordered the bill up to tomorrow morning. If you will allow me to offer you £20, that will bring you to London when you please to follow. £20? What is £20? No, I will not have your £20. And she pushed away from her the 2 notes which Lady Ongar had laid upon the table. Who is to pay me for the loss of all my time? Tell me that. I have devoted myself to you. Who will pay me for that? Not I, certainly, Madame Gordeloup. Not you. You will not pay me for my time. For a whole year I have been devoted to you. You will not pay me? You will send me away this way? By gar, you will be made to pay, through the nose. Ever the soul of graciousness. As the interview was becoming unpleasant, Lady Ongar took her candle and went away to bed, leaving the £20 on the table. As she left the room, she knew that the money was there, but she could not bring herself to pick it up and restore it to her pocket. It was improbable, she thought, that Madame Gordeloup would leave it to the mercy of the waiters, and the chances were that the notes would go into the pocket for which they were intended. And such was the result. Sophie, when she was left alone, got up from her seat and stood for some moments on the rug making her calculations. That Lady Ongar should be very angry about Count Pateroff's presence, Sophie had expected, but she had not expected that her friend's anger would be carried to such an extremity that she would pronounce a sentence of banishment for life. But perhaps after all it might be well for Sophie herself that such a sentence should be carried out. This fool of a woman, with her income, her park, and her rank, was going to give herself, so said Sophie to herself, to a young, handsome, proud pig of a fellow. So Sophie called him, who had already shown himself to be Sophie's enemy, and who would certainly find no place for Sophie Gordeloup within his house. Might it not be well that the quarrel should be consummated now, such compensation being obtained as might possibly be extracted? Sophie certainly knew a good deal, which it might be for convenience of the future husband to keep dark, or convenient for the future wife that the future husband should not know. Terms might yet be had, although Lady Ongar had refused to pay anything beyond the trumpery £20. Terms might be had, or indeed it might be that Lady Ongar herself, when her anger was over, might sue for a reconciliation. Or Sophie, and this idea occurred to Sophie herself, became a little despondent after a long calculation. Sophie herself might acknowledge herself to be wrong, begging pardon, and weeping on her friend's neck. Perhaps it might be worthwhile to make some further calculation in bed. Then Sophie, softly drawing the notes towards her as a cat might have done, and hiding them somewhere about her person, also went to her room. In the morning, Lady Ongar prepared herself for starting at 8 o'clock, and as part of the preparation had her breakfast brought to her upstairs. When the time was up, she descended to the sitting room on the way to the carriage, and there found Sophie also prepared for a journey. I am going too. You will let me? Said Sophie. Certainly, said Lady Ongar. I proposed to you to do so yesterday. You should not be so hard upon your poor friend, said Sophie. This was said in the hearing of Lady Ongar's maid and of 2 waiters, and Lady Ongar made no reply to it. When they were in the carriage together, the maid being then stowed away in a dickey or a rumble behind, Sophie again whined and was repentant. Julie, you should not be so hard upon your poor Sophie. It seems to me that the hardest things were spoken by you. Then I will beg your pardon. I am impulsive. I do not restrain myself. When I am angry, I say I know not what. If I said any words that were wrong, I will apologize and beg to be forgiven there, on my knees. And as she spoke, the adroit little woman contrived to get herself down upon her knees on the floor of the carriage. There, say that I am forgiven. Say that Sophie is pardoned. The little woman had calculated that even should her Julie pardon her, Julie would hardly condescend to ask for the £10 notes. But Lady Ongar had stoutly determined that there should be no further intimacy, and had reflected that a better occasion for a quarrel could hardly be vouchsafed to her than that afforded by Sophie's treachery in bringing her brother down to Freshwater. She was too strong, and too much mistress of her own will, to be cheated now out of her advantage. Madame Gordeloup, that attitude is absurd. I beg you will get up. Never, never till you have pardoned me. And Sophie crouched still lower, till she was all among the dressing cases and little bags at the bottom of the carriage. I will not get up till you say the word, Sophie, dear, I forgive you. Then I fear that you will have an uncomfortable drive. Luckily, it will be very short. It is only half an hour to Yarmouth. And I will kneel again on board the packet, and on the what you call platform, in the railway carriage, and in the street. I will kneel to my Julie everywhere till she says, Sophie, dear, I forgive you. Madame Gordeloup, pray understand me. Between you and me there shall be no further intimacy. No, certainly not. No further explanation is necessary, but our intimacy has certainly come to an end. It has, undoubtedly. Julie! That is such nonsense. Madame Gordeloup, you are disgracing yourself by your proceedings. Not the first time. Notice, though, that when she wants to, Julie can be quite steadfast in her own decisions of what's right and wrong. She ought to teach a little of that to Harry. That'd be great. Disgracing myself, am I? And in saying this, Sophie picked herself up from among the dressing cases and recovered her seat. I am disgracing myself. Well, I know very well whose disgrace is the most talked about in the world, yours or mine. Disgracing myself. And from you. What did your husband say of you himself? Lady Ongar began to feel that even a very short journey might be too long. Sophie was now quite up and was wriggling herself on her seat, adjusting her clothes, which her late attitude had disarranged, not in the most graceful manner. You shall see, she continued. Yes, you shall see. Tell me of disgrace. I have only disgraced myself by being with you. Ah, very well. Yes, I will get out. As for being quiet, I shall be quiet whenever I like. I know when to talk and when to hold my tongue. Disgrace. So saying, she stepped out of the carriage, leaning on the arm of the boatman who had come to the door and who had heard her last words. It may be imagined that all this did not contribute much to the comfort of Lady Ongar. They were now on a little pier at Yarmouth, and in 5 minutes every one there knew who she was, and knew also that there had been some disagreement between her and the little foreigner. The eyes of the boatmen, and of the drivers and the other travellers, and of the natives going over the market in Lymington, were all on her, and the eyes also of all the idlers at Yarmouth who had congregated there to watch the dispatch of the early boat. But she bore it well, seating herself with her maid beside her on one of the benches on the deck, waiting there with patience till the boat should start. Sophie once or twice muttered the word disgrace, but beyond that she remained silent. They crossed over the little channel without a word, and without a word made their way up to the railway station. Lady Ongar had been too confused to get tickets for the journey at Yarmouth, but had paid on board the boat for the passage of 3 persons, herself, her maid, and Sophie. But at the station at Lymington, the more important business of taking tickets for the journey to London became necessary. Lady Ongar had thought of this on her journey across the water, and when at the railway station gave her purse to her maid, whispering her orders. The girl took 3 first-class tickets, and then, going gently up to Madame Gordeloup, offered one to the lady. Ah, yes, very well, I understand, said Sophie, taking the ticket. I shall take this. And she held the ticket up in her hand as though she had some specially mysterious purpose in accepting it. She got into the same carriage with Lady Ongar and her maid, but spoke no word on her journey to London. At Basingstoke she had a glass of sherry, for which Lady Ongar's maid paid. Lady Ongar had telegraphed for her carriage, which was waiting for her, but Sophie betook herself to a cab. Shall I pay the cabman, ma'am? Said the maid. Yes, said Sophie. Or stop, it'll be half a crown. You had better give me the half-crown. The maid did so, and in this way the careful Sophie added another shilling to her store, over and above the £20, knowing well that the fare to Mount Street was 18 pence. That is the chapter where finally Julia Ongar breaks her relationship with Sophie Gordeloup. But it's not going to be the end. Sophie Gordeloup is a poisonous person to know, and they don't ever give up quietly. So there's going to be trouble. But we knew that, didn't we? We'll have to see. Sophie Gordeloup has seen a lot, both in Italy and in Julie's own room. She can make a lot of trouble. It's a little bit of an open question how much trouble she can make for a woman who is such a thorough outcast as Julia Ongar. Does it really matter? The world already thinks and talks poorly of her. But we shall see. We shall see. So I'll wrap this up for now, and we'll reconvene next time. Thank you, BookTube.